Today I'm very excited. I have sitting next to me an entrepreneur, a business owner, coach, mentor, and great leader. Greg, thank you so much for coming in.
Dude, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. So before we dive into the meat and potatoes, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, my name is Greg. Yeah. And I'm a prior Army officer. I spent 11 years in the military, deployed both Iraq and Afghanistan. Got married, had 4 kids together with my ex-wife. Ended up getting divorced.
4 kids, okay.
Military's trying on relationships, but I made a lot of mistakes, and so did she. And got out of the military. Decided I was going to try my hand at entrepreneurship. That's how I fell into insurance. I don't think anyone really goes in insurance being like, I want to be an insurance salesman. Like, I don't know anybody as a kid that wants to be that. You just kind of get sucked in somehow. and so I started doing that, and I only stayed with it because I saw people making money. And I just had the mentality of like, if one other person can do it, I can do it. Right? I just had to figure it out. And so I just never gave up, and I kept going. Through that process, learned a lot about myself, started working on myself, doing personal development, working a lot of my past trauma, especially with my deployments and then with my divorce. It got me to really be exceptional in sales. So where I created a platform to where people were just reaching out to me like, hey, how are you doing this? How are you selling this much? And that's what started. I started a podcast from it. I started my own agency, I just branched off from there because I saw a need in the industry of like helping people with transparent and like authentically just genuine training and leadership that most places that I saw didn't have.
Okay.
So that led me to now. So that's how I started my coaching and just really looking out for people, trying to help people be the best version of themselves.
That's awesome. And I can see that. So we've been connected now for some time, and every time you drop a post, I'm like, what does you have to say, right? Even some of your videos, I'm like, I'm tuning in, right? Yeah. So you're always providing that value. So you were in the military, right? How long did you spend in the military?
I served for 11 years total. So I got an ROTC scholarship for college. So I mean, you're not really in the military. We got paid by the military while we're in college because we went to military training every week. Like, we were doing PT every morning, but we're also going to school. And they're training you to be an officer. So instead of going to basic training, I went through ROTC where I'm basically trained for 4 years on every basic soldiering task: land navigation, rifle marksmanship, PT, leadership, etc. Everything that you learn in basic training, I learned over a 4-year to be excellent at it. So even though I was in college, you're kind of still in service in a sense. Like, not really, but you are. So I did that for 4 years, then I served for 11 once I graduated.
Wow. Yeah. And I'm guessing a lot of people don't take advantage of that opportunity, right? Some do.
Yeah. It's a small percentage of people. They say that, less than 2% of anyone that's ever lived that's American has ever been an officer in the United States Army or in any of the services across the board. So being an officer is kind of regarded as like, hey, you're in the top echelon of people that serve, right? So it's not a lot of people that become officers. So it's a pretty tight-knit community.
And did you want to retire from the military, or is that something that you just started doing because you just wanted to kind of do something after college?
I mean, I always knew I wanted to serve. I knew from a young age I wanted to serve. I used to do this thing because my dad would serve. He was in Vietnam, and he didn't talk about his service much. In fact, my dad almost never talked about Vietnam until I served and I went to war, and then he talked differently about it. But he did tell me about this officer that he served with, and he spoke with him with such like reverence, and he spoke with him in such a high regard that in my little kid mind of like, I was 8 years old, right? Then I'm like, dude, if my dad respects him, I want to be like that guy, right? And so I knew in my head I wanted to be a captain in the United States Army more than anything. And that's all I could see was captain. And I used to have these like daydreams. Like, I used to like daydream about it, and like I was manifesting it. And I had this specific vision where I'd sit there and think about it, where I was a captain and I'm on a parade field with soldiers there and I'm getting an award. Right? And I was a captain, and I would play. No, I'm not even kidding you now. I would play this old record, this old Queen record. I would play "We Are the Champions." Yeah. And I would play it on repeat on my mom's old record player, and I would replay it, reset it. And while I was thinking about this, and thinking about how I walk up, I got down to the weeds of the details of it was like spring, what the weather felt like, what the sun felt like on my skin.
Seriously?
I would think about it.
Wow.
And then it happened, right? I became a captain. I did get awarded multiple times. And it's just the power of manifestation. I didn't realize that's what I was doing as a kid until I became an adult. And I started learning about law of attraction, manifestation, and started learning the power of it. And I was like, man, I've already done this in my life. There's proof, right?
Yeah.
And so I've always wanted to be, and I always wanted to be an officer. And so when I was in the military, my nickname, everyone called me the General from the time I first got in, because they were just my presence. I'm very direct. I'm tall. I'm you even you
bro. I thought you were 6'1". You're how tall are you?
I'm 6'7".
Yeah, dang.
When I walk into a room, I have an energy about me. Right?
For sure.
And so everyone noticed it, and everyone called me the General. It was I'm gonna stay in probably for 40 years. I love serving. The divorce changed everything, bro. Changed everything.
And I'm assuming it's because you were gone all the time, right? Created more hardships.
Yeah, the deployments did not help. And we eventually what happens, we both cheated on each other, and we were both in the wrong. She cheated on me, and I found out about it, and I cheated on her. And I had a lot of anger that we had that divorce and everything and how it went down, and I blamed her for a long time. That she was the cause of divorce because she cheated on me first while I was in Iraq, right? And after some self-reflection and doing some work on myself, I realized the reason I was holding on to it is because I hadn't forgiven myself, because I was holding on to really holding on to a situation because of what I had done. I had every option when I found out, and when I got upset and ended up cheating on her, I justified my bad behavior with her bad behavior, right? Instead of, I could have done a million different things, but the fact of the matter is that I was a bad husband. I was a bad role model to my kids, right? I was being a bad father. And when I owned that, and I was okay with it, and I forgave myself, and I let it all go. I let it all, I did no anger, no nothing. Her and I have a great relationship. She lives in Tampa with her new husband. They've got 2 kids together. Her kids call me Daddy Greg. I go and stay with them. They have a room for me. So whenever I go visit the kids, if I want to visit them there, they stay summers and spring break and holidays with me. But during the school year, if I'm hey, I want to go come in for a week, I can. I just say, hey, I'm coming these dates. They have a room ready for me.
Wow, such a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man. And I know for a fact that there's a lot of people in the military that go through similar situations as what you gone through. It's very common. Very common.
Very common.
Walk us through from your opinion, right, and experience, why is there so much divorce, so much cheating in the military, right? Is it just being away? Is it not connecting? Well, what is it?
Man, the environment, the social construct and the environment that is within the military is a weird microcosm of all of American society that's completely separate, but it's it's derived from American culture, but it's so completely different. It's hard to explain if you don't know, if you've never experienced it, but it really is. It's its own thing within American society. But ultimately, I think it's it is a depiction of where society is at today. I think it's just society as a whole. If you look at my parents, that were both in Vietnam, the divorce rates during Vietnam were significantly lower than they are now, right? And they were deployed for longer. Yeah. So you look at that, and you look at Vietnam, and then you look at here. It has more to do with our culture and society and everything that's going on. Sex is idolized on TV. You know, men can get access to pornography faster and easier than ever before, right? I think that's a huge factor. You know, everyone's sexualized with all the social media. Look at this, scroll on anyone's feed. I don't know about you, but like my feed is like, it's all comedy, so like really funny, so like super dark humor, or business. And it's like business motivational stuff. That's all I see. If you go scroll on my feed, if you look at my trending page, it's like Alex Ramosi, Andy Frisella, like it's all that stuff. But other people, you go in the trending page, it's just like, if it's most guys, it'll be like girls in bikinis, right? Or like half naked. That is so idolized and put in everyone's face, like propaganda, that everyone's got this thought process like maybe the grass is greener, right? And what they don't realize is that it's like the old adage, wherever you go, you got to take you with you, right? So you look at your relationship and like, well, this isn't working because we're always apart. She's not making me happy. I'm not happy. She's not happy, blah, blah, blah. And then you end up cheating, divorcing, whatever. Well, then you get to another relationship and the same stuff's happening. People are looking externally to fix a need. Instead of realizing that they need to fix themselves.
So good. That is so good.
Right? I don't need a partner to be a good person. To be the best person I can be. Right?
Or they're not going to complete you.
Right? No one's going to complete me. I am complete. And I need to realize that. And then I need to find somebody else that also knows that they're complete. And then the addition of those two together and where you can go is beyond imaginable. Right?
So
So often we're searching for worth, for love, for happiness externally, and all of that is internal. All the love that you could ever want or feel is internal to you, right? That's an internal process. And then when you learn that and you realize that, then it's abundant in the world. It's abundant for you to give and for you to share with the world. And then you can find a partner that you can do that with.
Yeah, that's so good. I remember when I got together with my now wife, we were going to a marriage group. I think we were engaged at the time. And I remember a good friend now, his name is Blue. He got up, right, when we were there in the group, and he's like, this is I think it's third wife. And I got married, he got divorced several times because I thought they were the problem. But I was the problem. And now I'm going to work on my marriage. And I'm like, what the heck? Because at that time, we were, a couple months in, right? And, we got together, engaged and married, like, within, 9 months. It was back to back. But we're already dealing with, conflict, right? Issues. And I'm like, dang, I don't know if I want to, really commit yet. Maybe we got to work through some of these issues before I make a commitment. And kind of like what you said, I was kind of blaming her for certain things that would come up. little petty things like you didn't open the door for me, or you didn't text me back within 30 minutes. Well, the little bogus stuff, right, that we deal with in relationships early on. And then after a while, I'm like, we need to drop all this nonsense. Like, why are we wanting to pursue marriage? Oh, because we both love God. We think we're a fit for each other, and I think we could, essentially make a good family together, right? And that's like the mission. And when we were kind of walking through, talking about all those things, we're like, okay, we need to take the next step and get married. And those little things, just kind of put them aside and really work on the main thing and focus on the main thing, opposed to the other little petty things. So that was just interesting that guy got up and said, this is my third wife, right? Definitely eye-opener at that time. Because for me, I grew up not seeing what a healthy marriage looked like. So for me, it was just seeing people get with one girl and then go with another and then another, and always in the pursuit of happiness, right?
And that's the key, is that that's the thing that everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be loved, right? That's a basic human need. And I would say, if anyone's watching this and they're they're having trouble in relationships, whether they've been divorced or they're going through divorce, or you're dating and it's not working out, which is very common nowadays, right? I would say, stop looking to blame why it's not working with other people, and just be like, I'm the problem, and work on yourself, right? that will be the best thing that you could do. It is that's why there's such a high divorce rate.
Yeah.
And such a high, like, people are cheating on each other and just massive, like, serial dating.
Yeah.
Is because nobody wants to work on themselves. It's hard.
Oof.
It's hard to do that. To look in the mirror and be like, I fucked up. I don't know if I cuss, but yeah, like I'm kind of messed up, you know. And it took for me. I had an epiphany when I started working on myself. I really focused on my personal development. Like, started reading, started doing physical fitness every day, watched what I ate. I literally completely got rid of alcohol in my life. I stopped dating. And I was like, I'm gonna work on myself, and which was very difficult, very challenging, because I was so used to, like, chasing women.
Of course.
You know.
Yeah.
I had the greatest epiphany where I was, you know, I just got out of a relationship, and all my past relationships, it was always like, dude, these are crazy women kind of thing. Like, me and my buddies will talk stories. I got stories for days. I could probably write a book on all the crazy shit that's happened over from the time I got divorced until now.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, they're crazy women, right? And I looked back on these relationships. I had this one day. So it was this life-changing moment in church, and I was repenting. I was in church, and they'd pass out the sacrament, and so I'm taking the sacrament. And while I took sacrament, I always repented. And my repenting every week was vanilla. It was basic, just like, I'm sorry for not praying every single day. I'm sorry for not reading the Bible every day. I'm sorry for, you know, I could have done better with this or that. Like, just real weak, right? And that day, I did my little vanilla repenting prayer, and I was ending my prayer, and this voice in my head was like, "You're not done apologizing." And it was my voice, but I didn't control that. It was weird. Yeah. And it stopped me in my tracks. Oof. And I stopped, and I just thought, and I let my thoughts come to me. And the first thought that came to me was the last relationship I had been in, which a lot of crazy stuff had happened. But in that moment of time, because of all the work I've been doing, I was looking at the world through the lens of accountability, of like, I control my destiny. Yeah. Whatever situation I'm in, I'm only in that because I orchestrated it with my past actions. Like, where you're at right now, and this is for everybody, is a direct reflection of your past 100 days of actions, right? Ooh. Everything that you've done. That's good. Right? And so I'm starting to look at the world through that lens. And then when you do that, you start to realize, like, well, if I do these actions, it will have this outcome. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it's a delayed response. Like, it will have this outcome, right? And so with that thought of accountability, and now I'm looking back in my last relationship that's been 3 months old, like, we've been separated for 3 months, I realized, like, yeah, there was things that she did crazy, but it was two-way street. Yeah. Like, I did things that were bad, and I just looked at my actions. Ooh. And when I did that, I was like, this wasn't right, this wasn't right, this wasn't right. Like, I was not a good person. I was not a good man. I wasn't a good partner. Could have done better. And I forgave myself. I repented for it, and I felt great. It was like a weight being lifted off my heart, right? And then I would go to end the prayer, and it's like, nope, not done yet. Yeah. And I start working backwards, man. Every friggin' relationship, every past girlfriend, all the way back to my marriage. And that was the day that I literally looked at my marriage in a different lens, and I realized, like, that was a shitty husband. Like, I literally thought that. I was like, I was a shitty dad. Like, I was such a bad person to do that. There's a million things I could have done. You know, just so what, she cheated on me. I could have forgave her. I could have been like, hey, I found this out. Like, I held it in. I tried to live with it and not say anything. Yeah. And then it, like, came out through this horrible action, and I justified it. Yeah. Right? That's not okay. Right? And that's what happens. That's what happens in life with everybody. You're like, oh, like, I can tell you, anyone that has relationship problems, which is like 90% of us, right? You hear them talk about it, and it's always, well, they're doing this, and they're doing that. Well, but what are you doing? Right? Yeah. So how can you impact and make the world better, make your relationship better, and be an example for your kids, for your family members, for your community, to be like, this is how you treat your romantic partner, right? This is how you come together. This is how you communicate effectively. This is how you work together, right? And that's what, like, if you start working on yourself, I'm telling you, it changes the game. Oh, man. And everything in life.
So good. So good. reminds me of me coming home after work, and the kids are watching TV, wife's cooking, she's had a long day, stay-home mom, with 3 kids in the house, right? That could be stressful. And I realized that everyone's just like in their own little world. And then I'm like, man, like there's really no peace, no joy in the home. And I was like, in the beginning, I was like blaming my wife because she's sleep deprived, and I'm trying to understand, but she needs to do a better job at, creating a better atmosphere per se. And I'm like, no, like I'm coming here. My wife's already stressed. She's dealing with kids. You know what? I need to make a change. So what I recently started doing is I took down the TV, right? I'm like, we need to like communicate. We need to engage with each other more. Also, I started romanticizing my wife more.
Yeah.
Because I realized that, when we're after, a girl, we're pursuing, buying flowers, taking her out to date. But once we get married, everything changes just a little bit. You introduce kids and bills and work and all kinds of stuff.
Well, you stop pursuing.
You start pursuing, yep.
Because I have a theory about this.
Okay, tell me more.
Right? So think about it like work, right? Think about it like if you're in a job and you're like, hey, if I do this, I get to go up the corporate ladder. And no matter what level you get to, there's always a next level you can hit, but you're constantly pursuing until you get comfortable, right? But when it comes to relationships, you got like the first initial stages of dating to where you're like steady dating, to where you're like boyfriend, girlfriend, to where you're engaged, living with each other, married, and then there's nothing, right? It's like marriage is the pinnacle. And that's where most people think, is that they think that's the pinnacle. Yep. But instead, like you should be thinking like, what more can I learn? Because like people are so complex. Like you could live your entire life with your wife, and you could ask her and like have deep conversations with her every single day, and still not know every corner of her mind. Of course. Right. And so that's where it's like instead of seeing it as a status of like, I'm going to get to the next rank or the next position or whatever, you see it as I'm going to spend my life learning as much as I can about this human being to where I understand every corner of her mind. I understand her every desire, right? I'm laughing because my wife is like, she says something and I just give her a little look. I know exactly what you're thinking. I'm like, wait, what the heck? That's what it's about.
That's true.
That's what it's about, You got to take it to those next levels. There's levels far beyond, just being married. And it's all about connection. It's the depth of the connection.
And being intentional with my family has been hard. We've been sacrificing TV, social media, but what that's doing to our family is changing everything. We're spending now our weekends talking to each other.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Just that alone, that's huge. And then I'm there cooking, helping out, and then I just grab her, give her a kiss, give her a hug, and she's like, okay, what do you want? You know what I mean? What do you want? No, I just want to like tell you that I love you. Oh, okay. Throws her off a little bit still. But I'm doing that just because I realized that I need to bring that to the relationship, to my family. I not only do I want to continue to pursue my wife, which again, that's a hard thing. We've been now married for going on 10 years, right? Things get boring after a certain time for most people. And I want to do things different, right? I want to fight for my marriage. I want to be the leader of my home. And that involves sacrificing certain things or discipline myself to do or not do certain things. So yeah, man, it's definitely a blessing.
It is, man, and that's incredible that you're doing that. You realize that. I think the awareness is key, right? Having that awareness that that's what you want to do, and that you're like, hey, this is me. Like I got to start pursuing my wife again. Is obviously making an impact, right? Absolutely. So that's very commendable.
Thank you. So military, then got out of the military. Walk us through the transition.
Oh man. It's the transition happened over like a couple years, right? So when I first got out, I ended up getting a job at public storage. I worked at public storage I was a district manager. I got a job with a buddy. He was working there, and it's like an executive level track to like the executive levels, and I hated it, man. I hated it, and so I ended up quitting 4 months in. Took a sabbatical, didn't work for like 3 weeks, and I went to an interview that was a sales leading to management position for a no-name company. It was nondescript. Looked up the company, couldn't find it. Ended up being a mass interview, in-person interview for a life insurance company. And it was a bait and switch. And I was like, this is a little skeevy. Like, this seems not right. And and I was something about it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And so I started getting after it. I got my license, and I thought, you know what? If I don't like it, I can always do something else, and I'll have my license. So what? You know, I've been doing it ever since. So still doing it.
That's cool.
So that was in 2017.
2017. Okay.
And I'd say that the transition, the difficulty is in the military. You just say something as a captain. There's very few people that are above my rank. There's a lot of people that are below my rank. So I just look and say, "Hey, so and so, get this done," and then walk away. And it's happening.
Yeah.
Like there's no question, right? You can't do that with a 1099 agent. Like you can't. There's
True.
Like, it's a lot. It's the level of influence that you have to build. Versus just direction that I would provide, right, is much different. So I learned more about leadership in the past, I'd say the past 7 years, I've learned more about leadership than I've learned about leadership in all my years in the military, you know.
So good.
Which I learned a lot about leadership there too. And the more I learn, the more I'm like you never stop learning when it comes to leadership. It's a lifelong journey.
Absolutely.
So that I'd say the hardest transition was being an officer and being like very regimented, and there's like structure. An entrepreneur, dude, it's
all over.
Bro, you're just like every day I woke up, you know, for the first 3 years in insurance, I woke up with my butthole puckered, wondering where I'm going to make money from. What do I got to do? I don't you're just making it up on the fly and just like kind of throwing shit out there to see what sticks. And then you're like, okay, well, I made money doing this, and just driving down that path. And that to me is wild. You know, it's very unpredictable, but there was a satisfaction to it that as I found success, that made me feel like, wow, because the high that you get.
Oh, for sure.
Is unbelievable.
Oh, for sure.
So that's what kind of kept me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
after you close a big deal or start getting some success, you're like, that makes it's coming all together now, right?
You just have big deals, or you just have like a fun client you sit with where it's just a cool connection. Even if it's not the biggest deal ever, you just like, you leave there, you're like, man, this is why I do this. Like, man, that's and they're like, hey, stay for dinner, and they're like pouring you a glass of wine and like like eating dinner with them because it's like your last appointment, and you're like, why not? Like, what the hell? Oh, and then you leave there, and it's just like, that was the friggin' coolest family ever.
Yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
Like there was moments like that you get the real big highs, or like if you get a massive sale, you know, then you know, I've made, I'd say my biggest sale I got was like 25,000 commission in a sale, and when I closed it, I was like, did that just happen? Like, in one freaking call, like it was on Zoom.
Wait, one call?
It was on Zoom, one call.
Wow, this is something similar, but like in like 4 or 5 like meetings, but one call.
One call.
Dang! Wow.
He's a cool dude too. And I was just like, I can't believe that just happened. Like, I couldn't believe it. And
oh man, so good.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah, and I ended up doing future business with him too. But like, you have those highs, man, and then you realize like that's what it's for. That's what entrepreneurship's about, is having that feeling of success, and then riding it, just keep pushing the envelope, and then seeing how far you can go, and what your capabilities are. You know.
So you talked about obviously having 1099. We can call them employees, agents, downlines.
Agents, yeah.
Agents, right? But you were also an officer, so whatever you said had to get done ASAP. That's different from having W-2 employees and 1099 agents under you. You said you had to have more influence or persuade them into doing certain things because they didn't really have to listen to you. I mean, they could decide not to, right?
Yeah.
So walk us through that. Like, how do you influence how do you compel people to do something that is for their own benefit, but yours as well?
Yeah. So I think it's key to note that the difference between influence and manipulation is not the tactics used. Because I always hear people like, oh, that sounds manipulative. And it's like, okay, well, what's the end state that's going to happen? Because influence is all about, I'm getting you to do something that's going to benefit you. Now, it may also benefit me, right? That's sales. But it's definitely going to benefit you if you do it. Manipulation is like, it's only going to benefit me, and it definitely will not benefit you, right? And I know it won't benefit you with you doing it, but I know it's going to benefit me, right? So what's your thought process ahead of time? However, the tactics that they're used are identical, right? It's just the thought process behind it. And so when it comes to influence, I found that the best way that I have, this for me, has been I do a process that I learned through selling and also through reading, studying, as I do a question process. It's almost like the Socratic method, where I ask a lot of questions about the person and I get to know them. A lot of questions will start with what and how, and I develop out their story based on what they said, and I start to use, as I go along, I get to a point where I start asking what I call calibrated questions, where I'm asking specific questions and then getting them to tell me what it is that they got to do, so that they say it. And then I get their commitment. After I get all the information, I basically repeat all the information they told me, and I say, and I just roll it up, and I'll be like, hey, so-and-so, John, let me go on and repeat everything back to you, make sure that I understand what you said, right? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. If I miss anything, let me know. And then I tell them what they just told me, but I say it in my own words. I say it in the story because I want to invoke emotion. Okay. Because stories sell. Of course. Same way. This is the same way I sell, by the way, and it works. It works fantastically because what it does is it's in this moment of me listening to everything you have to say, you asking questions, not speaking over you, and at the end, I tell you everything in such a powerful story. It's like I'm looking to be like, I understand you, right? Yeah. And they're like, you understand me? And they get all like, and it's like I gave them a gift, because that's every human being wants to be understood. Of course. Period. Right. Yeah. And so when you understand them, it's like you gave them a gift of understanding, right? Yeah. And what happens when someone gives you a gift and you didn't give them one? You feel obliged to reciprocate. Yeah. Right? Sure. And so now they feel so appreciative that they now want to listen and understand me. And so they are tuned and opened up to listen in a different way. Oh, so good. So now when they listen, I'm literally going to tell them, you already said what you got to do. You got to do this, that, the other. Yeah. I would also add this. What else can we add? And now now we're collaborating. Yeah. Now we're collaborating. And at the end, I get them to do a commitment with me, right? So good. And commit and like actually take accountability. Be specific. Let's be specific about this. Let's commit to it, right? And if you don't hit it, this is what's going to happen, right? Like if you're going to do this, we're going to put tangible, quantifiable metrics, right? So let's say for an agent, you're going to do 100 dials every day. Monday through Saturday, 100 dials to rain or shine. Rain or shine, doesn't matter. Sick or not. You're gonna get done with this 100 dials no later than 11 a.m. Right, so that you have the rest of the afternoon to do productive time. So it means every morning you got to start at 8 a.m. to get those 100 dials in, right? And as you go on, you're gonna get faster and faster and faster. You have to be able to prove that you did those 100 dials, and if you can't prove it that you did them, and any single day, if I come and check on it by 11, and you don't have them, what are you gonna give up? Whew. Right? Wow! Because you already said you got to do. Yeah. So now we're gonna hold you accountable to it. If you're fine with that. So people give up what? TV, dessert. I mean, what do they give up? Some people have done like money. They'll pay up. Like, hey, I'll pay X amount, like $50 for every time I don't do it. Wow. Yeah. Can you give our audience a challenge? Yeah. Yeah. Well, it depends on what the audience needs. What do you want the audience to do? I don't know. You tell me. Okay, so I think the greatest skill that any person can do, or the greatest activity that any person can do on a daily basis, is to read and write every day. Read and write. Okay, every day. Got it. Every day. The act of writing, physically writing, journaling, writing out goals, stuff like that every single day, really does help you with. It's both of those are communication.
Yes.
It's understanding and verbalizing, either spoken or written word, communication. It helps in such a tremendous way. It helps you be successful in I don't care what industry you're in. Everything. So I would say every single person that's listening to this you should read 10 pages of a professional nonfiction book, something that will move the needle in your life or in your business, right? 10 pages a day, and write about what you read.
Okay.
What did you, from those 10 pages, stop for 5 minutes, think about it, let it swim around the old noodle, and then write bullet points, or just write about what your thoughts are on what you read. Don't try to regurgitate what the text said. What's your interpretation?
So good.
So this is going to also help your comprehension, right? So you do that every single day. This will take a max of 35-40 minutes of your day. Okay? Do this for a week. That's my challenge.
Just a week.
Just a week.
Okay.
Okay. And at the end of the week, write into Will and tell him.
Or in the comment section, if you're on YouTube or iTunes, whatever.
Yeah. Comment section. Send a comment, do something, and say, hey, I did it, and this is what it did for me. This is how I feel.
Boom.
Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Man, that's going to be
I'm telling you,
a good challenge.
You want to level up in life. Do that.
Okay.
Yes.
If you listen to this too, put in the comment section, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
All right. And also follow him. How can people follow you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Gregory A. Birch, BIRCH. I'm Facebook, Greg Birch, LinkedIn, Greg Birch. So awesome. I'm primarily on Instagram. So Gregory A. Birch.
Perfect. I'm going to put all the links in the bottom as well. But we're going to keep going. All right. We're going to keep going because we just covered maybe like 5% of what I wanted to cover. But get ready for a 3-hour podcast. I'm just playing. That's awesome. So talk to us about a failure, maybe a bad business partnership, maybe a bad transaction, something that's huge. Because I'm a big advocate of connecting with other people on past failures and weaknesses opposed to your strengths. Right?
Yeah.
So,
dude, that's actually a great point. I love asking that in interviews. What's the biggest failure you've had? How did you react to it and respond to it? How did you move forward? And like looking back and what you learned, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's what defines us.
Yes.
You know, that's definitely what defines us. I love that. Business. You know, when I was in a specific company, and I was in insurance. You know, I was running in insurance. I was doing real well, and I realized that the company I was with was using its messaging as propaganda to get agents to do things that was not in the best interest of the agents. That was really benefiting only the company. And when I realized it, I stayed with them. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to insulate my team and protect them. And I'm not going to worry about it.
Got it.
Not my problem. I'm going to flick that booger on somebody else. Right?
So that came from the top.
That came from the tippy top.
Okay.
Right? I
mean, it makes sense, right? And why were you thinking that way opposed to like exiting or leaving at that time?
I was afraid of the challenge of like doing it, like leaving or exiting on my own. I was afraid of like not having the support of like if I did like stand up and say something, and I would have had to leave. Like I knew like if I stand up and I do something, I have to leave, right? Because I can't stand by this. Because and honestly, like at that. By me not leaving and not saying anything, silence is consent. I'm putting my name and my stamp and my brand. That's
everything.
My reputation, everything of who I am. I'm staking it with. If you're in partnership, and that's I think the biggest thing that people don't realize is, I wasn't doing business by core values. right? By who I was as a person and by core values that I wanted to live by, right? I was just doing it by the money.
Oof.
And when I realized and it was eating at me slowly, when it finally got to a point, it came to a tipping point, I ended up leaving. And when I left, and that's when I started realizing, like, we have to have core values no matter where you go. And like, and now when I talk to an agent, they're like, where should I go? What's best for me? I don't know. What's your core values? What do you believe in life? Right? Like I can't sit here and tell you that I'm the best company to work with, but I can't tell you another company is either, because I don't know what your core values are. I can't say that the company that I left, that they would be terrible for you, because your values might align with them.
Right.
I don't know. Right?
So good.
So you have to like know who you are and know what you stand for, and then find companies that stand and believe in the same things that you believe in.
Makes sense.
And when you do that, you will, like, it's like nitrous that you're putting into your tank in order for both of you. It's a multiplication factor, right? So a good point of this, an easy way to illustrate this is Clydesdale horses, right? So Clydesdale horses can pull 800 pounds on their own. When you take two Clydesdale horses, you put them together, you would think they can only pull 1,600. No, they pull 2,400. Yeah. So they pull the amount that an individual, the three individual ones would push. But when you have two Clydesdale horses that know each other, and that spent their life together, they pull like 4,000.
Dang.
Yeah.
What the?
So it's a multiplication factor, right? So when you align with somebody that you guys are on the same friggin' path, dude, your actions are amplified massively, right? That's what people don't realize, because everyone's so singular focused. I just want to make money. I just want to focus on me.
Yeah.
You should be focused big picture. You should be working with people that you want to work with, right?
Absolutely.
And they want to work with you. And so I think the biggest mistake there was like staying there and not saying anything for the long time that I did. It was
because
months.
of the money.
Because of the money.
Right. So at that time, kind of going back, did you have conversations with yourself about like why you should stay, and how were those conversations like in the beginning, and then towards the end when you're like, you know what, it's time for me to leave?
So what's funny is that I had a conversation with a guy that was in the industry, that he saw from the success I was having with the podcast. I started my own podcast. I was having some sales success, and he was like, dude, you're getting a following. Like, he was like, why don't you just make your own insurance agency? Like your own, like completely independent. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know, like this, that, the other. Like, dude, I'm not trying to like make a big agency or make a lot of money. I really just want to help these agents. Like, I think more people should have success in the industry. And so a mentor of mine that I really trusted, he's still in the military. His name's Tyler Mitchell. Like, he goes by Mitch. I used to talk to Mitch every day, and I was telling him daily what's going on, and he was like, dude, they are not in line with our values. Like, he talked to, like, we were him and I were the same. They're not in line with our values. Like, this is gonna come to a head. Like, he's like, I understand, like, trying to like kind of insulate your team and segregate your team from everyone else. Like, he's like, but eventually, like, you're still in that organization. Eventually, it's gonna bleed out. There's gonna be the line's gonna be bled across. And he was the one that was kind of like, you might want to look at some other options, right? And that's when I actually got reached out to by another person that was in another agency that wanted me to join their agency. I don't know if it was serendipitous, I don't know, but I entertained flying out and meeting them. And at first I was like, dude, I'm not leaving, not happening. Like, there's nothing on God's green earth that's going to get me to leave. Like it ain't happening, you know? Yeah.
Were you very loyal to maybe your agents at that time that prevented you from even considering leaving? Or what was that like? I
was blinded.
Okay.
I wasn't loyal. I was blinded. Think about it like this. As entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you've heard this, where we talk about how being in a W-2 position a lot of times can be like chains that people put on themselves. It's like, oh, well, I got all these benefits, I got this, that, the other. It's like, yeah, but you don't have your freedom, right? And people get blinded by that, by the benefits. It's like, well, I got to go have this job because of these benefits. Like, I can't do it on my own. I was blinded by the success I'd had so far, and that going out on my own was like I was like a brand new entrepreneur all over again. Right.
Okay.
So it was, even though I wasn't W-2, I had a W-2 mentality in a sense, where I was like locked in, and so I wasn't loyal to them. I felt so far up that I was like, dude, if I got to start over again, I would be a ground level. Right. Got it. But here's the thing: is that all the skills that I built all along the way, I didn't realize that like I still had those skills. So rebuilding was nothing.
I was just gonna ask you about that.
Rebuilding is nothing. Like it was actually incredibly easy for me because I'd already done it before.
So you weren't as confident at your skills initially. Then you realize, oh snap! Like I do have the skills. Yeah. I couldn't make it. Right?
I can't make it. Exactly.
Oh man, that's so good.
Exactly.
So in the very beginning, a lot of people may be in a similar place like you once were. And is it beneficial for people to have a conversation, let's say, with the president, with the owner, if they don't align with their values? Or what can they do? Maybe they do have the benefits. Maybe they do have cash flow, right, going on. So
that's a good question. That's a really good question. So let's say that the company that someone's working in, anyone's working in, and they realize that the company they're with, the company doesn't have the same value proposition as them. Now you can influence the values from your position. You can influence and this is culture. This is company culture. So you can influence the culture from your position, no matter who you are, no matter what level, right? But it starts with yourself. So you have to lead yourself first. You'd be surprised just by being the best, right? Like coming in every day with zest and vigor to literally like attack each day as it's like your last day alive, right? And treating everybody positively and with kindness and also challenging people to be the best selves. Like you would be surprised how even the smallest person in an organization can impact, like it can start to bleed outwards, right? So I'd say start there. I wouldn't just leave, right? If you do this and you're making a change, but it's still being stifled, then I would start looking for other organizations that actually align with what your vision and what your goals are. Look at the company culture. You can go from W-2 job to another W-2 job. You don't have to go entrepreneur, but if eventually you decide like, I want to create this myself, like I have this goal and this dream and this vision, I want to build it, then there's all kinds of entrepreneurial opportunities and avenues that anyone can take. So I would caution anybody from just hearing me and be like, well, my company doesn't respect me and they don't have the great values. It might be that they do have the values, but like maybe there's a few bad apples in the management that's just above you.
That could be a factor, 100%.
Right? I would be cautious before you just make a brash decision, and I would work on yourself. Like you should be so undeniably great that they look at you and be like, dude, we got to give that person a raise because we can't afford to lose them.
Oof, that's so good. Whew.
That's it. So that's like if you get that point, then you can go anywhere you want. And you can get any position at that company you want. And you can start affecting change, get a higher position, and be like, hey, I have this vision for this company. I love this company. I really want to work here. I want to stay here. That's why I've been working my tail off and moving up the ladder. But I really want to like change the culture here because this is what you guys at the top may not realize it. But for me at the bottom coming up, this is what it was like for me, right? And I think that this is some really productive ways that we can improve everyone's, ability to be effective here. And, here's my ideas. But you have to earn your seat at the table.
Oof. Boom.
You have to earn it.
Woo.
Like,
so good.
There's so many people and this, man. In this day and age, there's so many people that are like young millennials and generation, what is it, Z or whatever, I don't know. Whatever generation's after millennials, like that generation, they're entitled. They were raised differently because, I was raised by baby boomers, right? But there's kids nowadays that are being raised by like millennials, by older millennials, and even generation Y, I think it is. I don't know the generations. Anywho, the generation that's past, that's older than, that's before baby boomers. But if you're in that generation, you were raised by baby boomers, like they were just my parents were kind of hard and crusty, right? Which caused that next generation to kind of be soft and be like real soft with their kids. Like, I'm not going to raise like my parents. My parents are kind of hard. I'm going to spank them. And now we have these kids that are just, they feel like everything is owed to them. So you get into a company and you may be a moderately managerial level, but you feel like you have more power. And it's like, bro, you just got here, man.
Yeah, you need to work for it.
You've been here for 2 years. You think like this company's been standing for 200 years. Like, you gotta earn your place a little bit more. So,
and then until that happens, you're gonna be able to influence the table.
Yeah.
I mean, MLK said this: you cannot influence a table that you're not seated at.
Exactly.
Right. So back to your point.
Yeah, you got to get a seat at the table, and you have to work. And the best thing you can do in any opportunity, I'm telling you, start working on yourself. Read and write. I'm telling you that will change. That will be the single greatest thing if you were to do that and you started doing that starting now for the rest of the year.
Boom.
You will look back and be like, that's the greatest thing I could have done, because it opened your mind to so many other possibilities of things that you could do, and then there will be more habits that spawn from it, more good habits.
By the way, I'm going to take that challenge myself. So challenge accepted, brother.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow. Okay. And hold me to it, bro. We'll chat about this after the podcast.
Dude, I've read so many books since 2021 when I started reading every day. I've got it like so many books I've read. So, dude, I got recommendations for days.
Okay. So. And then when they reach out to you, you could just give them that those books that you read. So bad business partnerships. You left. Did you have a conversation with leadership, or you're like, enough is enough, it's time for me to go? What was that like?
I had tried to have conversation with leadership multiple times about different things when it came to culture, and I got laughed at. Like, literally, they're like, that's not how this industry is. Like, you just, no one cares about that. Just do more. Just hire more people. Like, if they're going to make it, they're going to make it. If they're not, they're not. And it was these kind of conversations where it was so focus-centric on producing numbers for the top and not about leadership and actually tapping into people's potential and raising them up to newer levels.
So that takes work.
Effort.
Yeah.
And so I realized I was in the wrong place. So when I first transitioned over, when I left, I left to another organization that was part of a bigger organization.
Okay.
And the only reason I left was because I literally sat with the top organization when they wanted to basically wine and dine me.
Yeah.
And the chairman of the board came in, and the first thing he told me was like, hey, we're a leadership company. We just happen to also sell insurance. And I was like, speaking my language. I like what you're saying. And we had a deep conversation about leadership. It was great. It was genuine. Right? It was a conversation, right? It was just wasn't an interview. They weren't trying to sell me,
right?
Just
like we're having.
It was just very genuine, and we did it for hours. And then they started showing me some of the tech that they're making, and I was like, I can't unsee this, right? And so the company that had brought me into that conversation, they were part of it. It was like an umbrella, right, with all these different insurance agencies within. And so I thought that they believed in the same things as the parent company. That's why I partnered with them.
Okay.
When I got there, and I started to promote, I was there. People started leaving. It's like a mass exodus. People were like coming over because they saw I started my podcast. I just crushed some sales goals, And everyone's like, "Oh, dude, if he's leaving, there must be something over here." Right? So a lot of agents were following me, and right when I got there, right when it was the height of like agents coming on board, that chairman of the board had a call with me, and he was like, hey man, I understand, like, I love what you're doing here and this is great. You might have picked the wrong people to align with. Like, out of everyone in our organization, they are probably the least aligned. like basically. He said like, and I was like, I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make an assessment before I just jump ship. I literally just jump ship, and everyone's following me here. I can't just like jump ship again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna make an assessment. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But at least give me the chance to like see if I can influence this. And dude, he was right. It didn't take long before I started seeing the signs, and I was like, all right, I already left before, and I'm not standing by this again. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. And so it came to a head where I was like, hey, dude, had a very kind of conversation with him. I was like, hey, man, this is the route that you're going. And if you keep going down this route, like, this is where it ends. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
If you stop, we can go down. Like, there's something here. It's like magic in a friggin' bottle. Like,
yeah.
We just caught lightning. We can ride this, what we're done, and keep going. But you have to get on board. Right. Like, you have to this has to be done right by the agents, done right by the carriers, done right by us last. And he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it.
What was his reasoning?
Well, I found out later he was crooked as hell. Yeah. He was actually selling leads. He was selling second chance leads that he was buying super cheap, and he's selling them as A leads. He was pocketing the difference. And he was gambling all the money. Dang. He gambled all the money. He was a terrible gambler. And so I jumped in with him really quickly without really assessing him. So he said all the right things. And I felt like he was being honest. I took him to his word. But as soon as I saw a sign, I was like, nope. Like, I gave him a chance to talk about it, and he showed me. He knew that, like, if he stepped out of the line, that I was leaving. He knew it. And so what he did instead, he knew he was going to step out of the line.
Yeah.
So he friggin' cut me off, and he went public to all the agency, and because it was like him and I that were like building this together now.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I got rid of Greg. Greg's leaving. This, that, the other. Like, he's become a cancer. Like, trying to like make up stuff about me.
Right.
And like, no, everyone was like, what? Like, it didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't say. I just bided my time. And I waited. And I went back to the chairman of the board. And I was like, hey, man, are you right? You're absolutely right. So I would like to create my own thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I created an agency. So I want to create my own thing. This is what I believe in. Same thing. It's right in line with what you guys believe in. I'm tired of like aligning myself or being with people that don't believe in it. Like, we got to do something different, man. So I was like, I don't know how many people are following me that followed me over to, here initially. Yeah. And who's going to follow me back, but whoever does, and if they don't, I wish them best. Like, I'm not going to force anything. So, it was very easy to walk away.
Easy.
It was because I'd already walked away once. And,
so it gets easier, right? Because it happened to you in the beginning. Then you made a decision, which took a long time. What was the time frame? Like a year, 2 years before you actually left the first time?
It was about 6 months.
6 months? Okay.
6 months.
I mean, closing deals and doing all that. So I know that you were making money. So that was definitely a leap of faith initially. The second time was like, hey, this person doesn't hold the same values as myself. Because of that, it was easier to walk away.
Oh, dude, it was really easy. And I could just tell, like, I'm being very vague. I understand.
Of course.
But when I say he didn't hold the same values, like, it was pretty bad. Like, I was hearing things that were coming back to me from agents in the company that I would then go to him and I would catch him, and I could tell. I started to realize when he was lying. He was a good poker. He was like a great poker player, but he had a tell, and I started to pick up his tell, and I got to the point where I was like, dude, stop bullshitting me. Oof. Like, I'm not an idiot. Stop talking to me like you could play me like I'm tired, bro. Like, just stop. Just shoot me straight, Yeah. And when I started to talk to him like that and not like cater to him, that was when the whole relationship changed. That's when he was like, okay, because I think he knew he couldn't manipulate me anymore. right? Like he realized that he was a bullshitter and he knew that he couldn't do it anymore. So he was like, I got to get rid of this guy because he's going to uncover me for the fraud that I am. And I just didn't realize how deep it went until after I left. And that entire company crashed and burned. Like they're gone. They don't even exist. Dang. This guy's not even in insurance anymore. Like I don't even think he can sell anymore. He's been trying to sell it. Like I always hear. So I'm like, oh, have you heard this guy? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I heard from people that were really close to him. They're like, oh yeah, he was stealing money from agents. Tons of carrier debt. Like over $1 million of carrier debt. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, do you have better conversations as, you develop, I guess once you have more experiences, bad experiences, you start having better conversations with people or set an expectation? Or do you just are like upfront with people and blunt from the very beginning? Like, how do you, like, for example, what just happened, right? A bad experience, bad, business relationship. Do you always have the same tone with everybody moving forward, or is that different based on who you're talking to?
Kind of, I think there's a level of experience and wisdom that happens when you do this, because then you go back and you play your game day footage and you're like, the signs were there, I just didn't see them. So where were they? So you kind of start to see them. And, for instance, when I first had the conversation with, when I left the first time and they reached out to me and trying to get me going, I was like, it ain't happening, right? I flew out to go meet them, and I went with the knowledge of, like, my mindset was, they can say whatever they want to say. It ain't happening. But that made me almost, my mind, that mindset made it to where that when they came in and said exactly what I wanted to hear, when I heard them come out and talk about leadership and all this that I was having, they didn't even know I was struggling with that, but it was like the right friggin' thing. It sold me. Right? Blindly. Right? And so on the reverse, I think now is I'm always open to any opportunity where I'm open. And now I'm like, okay, let me ask really good questions, and let me find ways that I can realize and find how it's not a good fit. Does that make sense? So my perspective is a little bit different. So everything is an opportunity now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, when I had, for instance, I partnered my agency. I recently, this is week 4. I recently partnered with another agency that is in the same umbrella. We're under the same umbrella. And we got recommended to talk to each other because he was looking for somebody to help him with social media, marketing, and branding. And he had built systems and he had lead programs that I didn't have. And I was trying to do that for my agents. And so it was kind of pitched like you guys could kind of combine and work together. And the first thing I got on the phone was, I was like, dude, what's your core values? What's your vision? What's your mission? What's your culture like? That's what I cared about. Like, who are you, and how do you do business? What do you believe in? And that was what we talked about for the first hour phone call. And we both talked about culture and core values. And even to this day we talk about that, right? And it was a great conversation. It was like everything, he was exactly in line with what, and he talked about his story and things that had happened to him, and I knew from his explanation of why he believed in those things and how he had been done wrong, it was actually very in line with things that had happened to me in the industry. And so I knew that he was being genuine just by his explanation. And so I was like, you know what, let's do this. So we ended up meeting in person just to see how he worked. So we recently just partnered. His name is Pete Beckman, and he owns Unitrust. And so I partnered my agency with Unitrust. So now we're all one big family at Unitrust, which is awesome. It's been a great experience working with like-minded individuals and literally partnering and to make a larger agency. And dude, he's it's growing massively. So it's been great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I was going to ask you too about, for our listeners, people that are watching and maybe they're in a relationship right? Maybe pursuing a relationship, in a relationship, or in a similar place that you once were. How do you have those conversations where, you know, the other person may be saying the right things because maybe maybe they have a similar goal in mind, or this person knows how to craft their messaging in such a way that it makes the other person believe that everything is going to be good. There's a unity, there's the values, the principles, or everything is dialed in, but there's some flags. How can our listeners have better conversations with individuals?
Communication is always the hardest thing when it comes to, I think it's the number one factor for why relationships fall apart. It starts with like communication breakdown. That's the number one.
Yeah.
You know, if you're having flags, if you're in a relationship and you have flags, what I would do is, this is what I would recommend, is I would sit down one day and I would really think long and hard and think about the perfect relationship, right? It doesn't have to be that person. It can be that person, right? Thinking like, man, if she was, I'm like, let's say you're with somebody, and you're thinking about your girlfriend, her name's Leslie, and you're like, man, if Leslie was perfect, she would have these qualities, and write it out. Like my non-negotiables. I want my perfect partner to have this. I would really like them to have this as a bonus, right? And what I would look at is, I would not look at physical, like I wouldn't focus solely on physical attributes. I would look at content of character. You cannot change that. Right?
So good.
So are they kind? Are they generous? Are they warm-hearted? Right? Are they competitive? Right? Do they want to get better every single day? Are they a good listener? Right? So like, write these things out, what you want. Okay? Because what you're doing is you're taking your focus and you're saying, this is like what I'm attracted to, and you're telling the universe, this is what you want. I'm telling you, this friggin' works, man. This works. And so what's going to happen is, it's going to give you, if you're with somebody and they don't meet that, right? You have to be that, right? You have to be all those things. And so you're going to realize, if you aren't those things, you'll start being those things, and your partner may see you level up and follow suit. That's when you lead by example, right? Then, or you may do those things and they don't want to level up, and it makes them feel uncomfortable that you're literally like creating a gap between them and where you are, and that gap makes them uncomfortable, and they will start acting out, right? They will try to drag you back down, like, hey, come do this with me, come relax on the couch with me, come eat those Doritos with me, all the vices, all this stuff. They're going to try to get you to do that. And then that's when you're going to realize, like, this person's not my person, and you'll be more comfortable and okay with leaving the relationship because they're not your partner. They're not your person. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing, right? You have to be okay with being alone. And that's when you write this out, you're going to realize, when you actually go through the process and start working stuff, you realize, if you're just there because you don't want to be alone, and you're just bypassing and overlooking all these red flags to stay with them so that you don't have to be alone, or is this person truly, genuinely my person, right? Yeah. And that's a difficult one. I'm telling you, when you write this out, if you're single and you do this, literally write out everything you think about what my perfect person is, and start envisioning it. I heard somebody say this twice to me. 2 different people says twice to me. Okay. I heard it on stage. I heard Ryan Stewman on stage at $1 Million Mastermind. Yeah. He said it in 2022. No, 2021. No, it's 22. It's 2022 $1 Million Mastermind. Last year, I had an agent that joined my agency, and he was a big time agency. And he actually had a whole team he was coming with, and he wanted to spend time with me. So I said, fly out to Texas, come stay with me. Like, I got a big house, and when I have agents come to visit, I'm like, just stay with me. I got a 5-bedroom house. Like, we'll crush it. We'll go in the field together, get to know each other. Yeah. And we spent a lot of time talking. He's a little bit older, and this happened like the end of last year, beginning of this year. And he was talking about his wife and how he met his wife. And we were talking about stories because I was like, I was dating, and so I was trying to I was trying to date, but I wasn't really dating because I'm just like, I don't got time for these people. Like I'll go on dating apps and then I'll get bored because like it's no substance, right?
Yeah.
And so for those of you on dating apps, I understand it's
a struggle.
It's a struggle. The struggle is real. And so he told me, he's like, hey man, he was like, I was where you were. He was like, I had a divorce. My life fell apart. I started working on myself. I started working out. He was like, I was like jacked like you. And I was dating everybody. And he was like, and finally I got sick of it. And I was like, well, what do I want? And so one day I got sick of like just having these meaningless dates. And I sat down and I took a piece of paper out and I wrote out, who do I want to be with? And I literally wrote out every single aspect of this person when it came to their character attributes. What is my non-negotiable and what did I really want? And he said, and I shit you not, he was like, it wasn't even 3 months later that I met her. And I knew the moment that I met her in person, I knew that she was my wife. He was like, it was like I literally created her from this, like the world brought her to me, right? And he was like, and I started pursuing her. She didn't want anything to do with me, and she finally did. He was like, she's my wife today. Oof. He was like, but she's been like my perfect partner.
Yeah. Right?
And so I was like, you know what? This is the second time I've heard it. I'm gonna friggin' do it. I shit you not. I got it on my phone, so I'll take a picture of it. I wrote out. I sat down that night and I wrote out everything that I wanted. And dude, I met her like 3 months later. I met her.
Wow.
And so we started dating, and like I knew from the moment that the first time I spoke to her, I was like,
this is it.
She's deep. I was like, she's like, I can have a deep conversation with her.
So good.
And she started checking off all the boxes, and I was just like, she's kind-hearted, she's competitive, everything about her is just amazing. And so I highly recommend, no matter if you're in a relationship, if you're having trouble, that this is a good tactic to work on yourself, but also to find your partner.
Yeah, and everything you just said, that could be translated to business as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, this writing out what you want. You could do this with every single thing that you want. You're like, hey, I want the perfect position, the perfect company. I want to work with the perfect guy. Yeah. Write out what they would do. Write out what's your position. Write out how much you'd make. Write out how you feel being in that position. Right? Wow. Like if I got this position, this is how I would feel. I'd feel blessed. I'd feel grateful. I'd feel rejuvenated. I have this zest for life every single day when I woke up. Right? Like, and then I start imagining how those feelings would be. Like literally close your eyes and be like, and imagine you have it. I'm telling you that this is how you manifest things into your life. Yeah. And it works. I'm not this like crazy woo-woo guy. Like I'm just not. I've never been that way, Mike. I was raised by very practical, like, and very, very strict parents. You know, prior military, both military parents. And like very practical upbringing. Yeah. It wasn't until like I started doing more personal development that I started realizing like this stuff actually exists. Yeah. And it seems like it's mystical and crap. Yeah. I'm telling you it's not. I believe with every fiber of my being.
I mean, you're living proof of it. I mean, from the very beginning, you were doing that at an early age, and now you're doing that as a business owner and leader as well. So that's awesome. So how can people connect with you?
Yeah, you know, I always tell people the best way is hit me up on Instagram. I answer every single message that people send me. I'm pretty active on there. I usually post every day, but I'm actually, because I just combine with Unitrust and with Pete, I've taken a step back from posting every day because I'm really focused on their social media and like getting their branding and everything up and going. So I've took a little break, but I still have a ton of. I've got like over 1,000 posts of like really good content. So, and then anyone who has any questions or want to talk to me, I'm happy to help.
Perfect. That's awesome. Do you still have a podcast right now that you're?
Yeah. So there's 100 and like, I think 80 episodes out. They're called the Be the Difference podcast.
Be the Difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it was all based on my company, which was Delta. And I have a coach. My coaching company is Delta Fit, and Delta is the Greek symbol Delta, which when you use it in conversation, it means the change or the difference between two things, right? And so I use Delta as a moniker to be the difference, to be different in life, to be the difference in your family, in your community, in the world.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Dude, it's my
We're
pleasure.
gonna have you again. If you want to have him again, drop something in the comment section. Be like, hey, Greg, we need you back.
I'd love to come again.
Yeah, that's awesome. With that being said, again, keep fighting the good fight. Stay in prayer. Stay dangerous. We're out.